crowning the best wedding photography camera going into 2025. I'm Taylor Jackson, and this year I shot a wedding with all the major brands of cameras from Nikon, Sony, Fujifilm, Fuji, GFX, and even Canon. Sony was my primary, and I shot about 30 weddings with the system. Nikon came in second with 12 weddings, Canon third with 5 weddings, and also a pretty intense workshop in Iceland, and Fujifilm with 3. We're gonna keep this in the scope of wedding photography, and I'm only going to talk about cameras that are currently out or about to ship, nothing that's speculated. I am also going to take budget into heavy concern. I could easily recommend the $6,500 Sony A1 Mark II, but that's just not realistic. And now, let's get right to the awards. It's a nice drum roll. Best value for quality for weddings and just the overall best wedding photo camera this year. This goes to the Nikon Z6 Mark III when also taking into account system buy-in. There's great autofocus, great Nikon lens selections, including some of my favorite lenses of all time, like the 24-70 f2.8s, as well as access to third-party lenses like the Tamron 20-75 G2 and the 35-150. Plus with the FTZ adapter, back access to like 300 other lenses, including my other favorite lenses like the 58mm f1.4G, the 85mm G, the 45mm tilt shift, and the 16mm fisheye. Okay, maybe the fish isn't up there on the list, but they do have more than one actually. The Z6 III came under a little controversy when it was released this year, people saying that the dynamic range and the low light performance was bad and just don't buy this camera. As somebody that's tested it in real life in challenging conditions, it is totally fine. I would even rank it above my Sony A9 Mark III in real life wedding high ISO. The Nikon ecosystem overall also offers you some great unique options like the full pro quality Nikon ZF. I shot that for 4 weddings this year. And when you're not using it for weddings, it also becomes a really nice travel and family camera. Then the Nikon Z8 is a great step up if you want to go full silent mode with more megapixels. Nikon also makes beautiful viewfinders and screens, unlike the sad panda experience that I get to use on my Sony cameras. Even though it's expensive, the viewfinder and the screen, I would also rank Nikon files being my favorite to work with overall. I love the skin tones and specifically how Nikon files look in warm light, in golden hour, and also in blue hour. The straight out of camera JPEGs are top tier. The Nikon Z6 III is a very balanced and great deal for us as wedding photographers, and there's also just a lot of good things happening in the Nikon ecosystem. And before we get to the next camera, only a few days left to get in on the pre-sale of my new 10-step to full-time wedding photography course. It comes with a ton of bonuses, including my flash photography course for weddings, my contract, email templates, my full audio book, my full Lightroom preset collection, which is usually $89 on its own. The course itself will be $399 when it comes out in January, but if you pre-order it, you save $300, so it's only $99, which is only $10 more than that preset pack, and you get instant access to my full flash course as well, which is usually $199 on its own, and then also more bonuses included. The only catch is you have to get in before December 31st at midnight Eastern time, and as always, a 100% money back guarantee. If you get the course and it's not what you're expecting, send me an email. My email is here on the screen, and I'll send your money back. Now, the next camera. This is also a great value buy with a lot of first and third party lenses available. The Sony A7 Mark IV. It's a great balance of image quality, performance, versatility for cost. I like the 33 megapixel sensor a lot. I feel that it's perfect for weddings. You can go into crop mode and get some extra reach from your lenses, but in crop mode, you still have a reasonable number of megapixels. This was my main camera for the 2023 season, and we created some wonderful images together. It was my second Sony camera body this year next to the A9 Mark III. The A9 III is great, but not worth the cost in my opinion. And like my friend Magic says, here's the thumbnail. The A7 IV high ISO is great, and this camera will give you everything you need to get a wedding done. Plus, Sony has just added the 28-70 f2 to their lineup, which is considered the ultimate wedding lens by a lot of people. This part here also should have been in the Nikon section, but the firmware stability of Sony cameras have been great. I probably put 150,000 images through that Sony A7 IV, and I cannot remember it locking up one single time. The same goes for the Nikon system. Even on the weird pre-production firmware that they give us, I've never had any issues with Nikon or Sony cameras. Next up, the lockup king, Canon. I'm kidding, but it has been an issue for a lot of people, which is why I'm putting them down in third for this year. I guess that and the lack of third-party lens options and just bad ergonomics overall on a lot of the first-party lenses that could be for weddings, but were designed a lot more for video shooters since that's clearly Canon's focus. I guess that's not totally fair. I feel like that's pretty much everyone's focus, that no one's really making wedding photography stuff. Everyone's making video production stuff and trying to package it for photographers. Canon is a tricky one for wedding photography right now though. While they have the all new R5 Mark II and the R6 Mark II that came out, I guess last year, I still recommend the original versions, the R5 original, the R6 original, if you're just doing photography. So my Canon award winner for third place here is a Canon R6 original. It's a great cost-effective body that does a lot of what you need. It only has 20 megapixels, which is fine as long as you don't do a lot of cropping. And if those megapixels make you nervous, you can go up to the R5 original, which would be my second recommendation for Canon right now. Well, I really did enjoy using the Canon R5 Mark II for some weddings as well as the shoot in Iceland. For photography, I really didn't see that many real-life upgrades over the original. If I was making this video in December of 2020, Canon would have been at the top of this list. They made a very good launch into mirrorless and took a bunch of the market. But in December of 2024, I feel like a lot of the Canon shooters that I know are ready to jump ship. I think camera firmware stability is also a big problem for a lot of Canon photographers now. It is a key reason why my wife Lindsay is leaving Canon.
Taylor's trying to trigger me today by asking me if I like my camera. No, I don't like my bleeping camera. I have an R6 and an R6 Mark II.
Going to Nikon, she's had a lot of lockups during wedding days and problems where images were written to the buffer and then got stuck there and never actually wrote to the card. She lost about 80 images from a wedding day a few weeks ago. Fortunately, she had a second photographer, and that is pretty scary. Hoping to see something great from Canon for wedding photographers this year, but we'll see together. There it is, my crowned best camera for wedding photographers 2024, the Nikon Z6 III. And it's maybe interesting that the ranking that I've given here is actually in reverse order for industry sales. I think Canon, at least in weddings, is still pretty dominant with Sony in second. And then for everyday cameras, Fuji dominates so hard. Another unique thing we've noticed, so we're in Japan a few times per year, and I would say that 80% of the cameras we see out in the wild there are Fujifilm, then maybe 10% additional Leica, and 10% including the rest of the market. So Sony, Canon, Nikon all fit into that remaining 10%, and Fuji just absolutely dominates. And while I feel that it's not that extreme in North America, I feel like there still is a big Fuji element for people that just want an everyday camera. Questions, comments, concerns, please drop them in the comments, and don't forget to get in that pre-order before it is gone on January 1st. $300 off and a ton of bonuses that you have access to right away, like my full preset collection and my full on-camera and off-camera flash for wedding photography course. There's a lot in there, and it's an incredible deal until the end of this year. See you next time.